Welcome back to the Surfcast Podcast. Toby, we don't do this very often. I don't know if we've ever done it, but I'm going to address something that someone sent to me, question-wise, from just a couple episodes ago. Literally from, just a couple, I think, where I was talking about my lessons from the log, how I just have everything thrown on the basement floor and won't be prepared until spring. Mm-hmm. Quite a few people sent me messages. They were surprised by that. And one was even fairly chastising, like, what's wrong with you, etc. So I'm going to explain a little bit, although I'm not going to take away exactly what I said. But I will say this. I fish so hard and so much, it's very hard to hold my life together, let alone keep my gear organized. Keeping a marriage running and working comes first. Of course, after fishing. Fishing first, of course. Hopefully Carl's not listening. Fishing first. Gear getting thrown on the floor is the last of my concern. I know where everything is, and it will be taken care of, and you cannot just take your stuff with rusty hooks, torn up leaders, etc., at the beginning of the season and roll out the door. You can't do that. And I wasn't suggesting that that's exactly what I do, but I had to address that because I got quite a few questions, we'll put it that way, about that. So, yeah, probably knew that was coming, right?
Yeah.
So today we have Surf Association. We're going to do another episode of Surf Association. When we asked what people's favorite episodes were, a couple people said these were their favorites. We often get a lot of good feedback about these because they're fun little snippets, ways to learn, and they can be funny. Although I will say, I don't think I have any trolling questions for you, Toby. At least I hope they don't come off that way. I don't have any for you.
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of random stuff because I keep jotting down a note file in my phone with questions. Some of them I look back and I'm like, what the hell were you even thinking when you put this half note in here that makes no sense? But of the ones that are in sentence form at least, or at least coherent to some degree, I don't think I have any trolling unless I come up with something on the fly. So.
Yeah, I don't think, but we'll see. Actually, one of them I'm looking at you might think is a trolling question, so we'll see what happens.
The one I got noted, as you'll see, to start things off when it's my turn is kind of trolling, but not really. Like, it's an honest question I think I have for you that I don't know that I've ever asked. So.
I'm dubious now. I'm not so sure. I'm not believing you. Okay. I'll ask first since I'm talking. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question I have for you, and I'm going to be looking down a lot because I'm looking at my phone because that's where my questions are. The hardest place or situation to land a trophy striped bass is?
On a sand beach with a big surf. That's where I go for a couple of reasons. Probably the simplest for me to answer is because it's where I fish the least. So, like, there's a little level of uncomfortableness of landing a big fish on the sand when there's a big surf up. Like, I've done it. I get nervous, though. Like, if I'm landing a fish on a rock, let's say, I'm kind of out in the water. Even in a big surf, I feel like it's a little easier. It's a little less risky to lose that fish. Whereas in the sand, even though I know the concept of what I should do when I'm bringing that fish in, when it hits the trough, in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, I want to get this thing on a wave. I want to have the waves help pull it up, but I know the wave's going to pull it back down, and is it going to go too far? And how many times am I going to do that back and forth dance? So for me personally, it's going to be, and it obviously gets amplified as the surf increases in size. It's going to be on the sand. If I had my next personal best, and I had to, I'm like, I got to land this thing. I'm going to straight up feel more comfortable in any water conditions on a rock than I am on that sand, even though, like, it's probably a little easier off of sand because you don't have, the rocks cutting you and you falling down and smacking and this and that. I'm just so comfortable on the rocks. It's my home. It's where I've spent, 94% of my surf career is standing on a rock. So that's easier on the rock, and for me, harder on the sand on a big surf.
Very, very interesting. Didn't expect that answer, which is fantastic. For those listening, just a reminder, it's our first reaction responses to these questions, and the other person is not allowed to comment, no matter how desperately they would like to, like I do right now. So, all right, Toby, great answer. On to yours.
So for my first one, like I said, this is kind of a little trolling, but not really. But it's something I'm sure you've kind of mentioned in passing, but I'd really like to know.
Okay.
Why don't you fish with real eels?
Oh man. Oh, you really went there, huh? You really went there. Oh man. Okay, so the reason I don't fish with real eels, with live eels, or dead eels, or rigged eels, well, rigged are even more complicated, but the other two is the population of eels is not doing so great. And it's probably potentially doing even worse than we know because they're not well studied. And I just feel in this particular case that my contribution to that for fun doesn't make me feel good. Now, listen. Before everyone starts pouring in the hate mail, listen. Is the surf guy doing any damage to the eel population compared to what's being consumed overseas? No, obviously not. Obviously, we're nothing, right? And this is the argument I also make for chunking menhaden. You're not making any difference chunking menhaden, especially the surf guy, where you're not just like snagging, but you have like a certain amount and you're careful with it. You're not making any difference in the population of menhaden. The population, it's just being, the reduction fleet is just annihilating them by the hundreds of millions of pounds or whatever. So, but for me, fishing with the eel, knowing in the back of my mind that they've been up to be put on, like, I believe, Toby, maybe you know better than me, but I believe they've been like potentially put up for like endangered and threatened multiple times and didn't end up on the list, but like it's that bad. For fun, I don't know. It just doesn't do it for me. Now, that's the holier than thou answer. There's also another answer that I that I also don't use very much, but I'm going to say it in a podcast. I say it in my seminar series. I don't normally like in a seminar, but I'm going to say it here. I'm going to go for it. I just get bored. I'm a little bit bored. I will say, as much patience as I have, throwing it out and reeling it back in the past has been very boring for me. I don't know what the difference is between bucktailing, which is casting out and reeling it back a lot of times for me, and I stay totally into it. There are nights where I'll fish a super strike darter for virtually 3 hours straight doing the same thing over and over. I don't know what the difference is there either, but there was something about it. But I will also say, and I've been talking for too long, the final thing I will say is I didn't fish eels when I learned my spots. I fished most of them. I picked up eels like partway through some of them when I was already done learning, as if that's a thing, but mostly done learning of some of them. And so I never felt that need, like some people I know who are like, this is the eel spot, this is the whatever. I don't have those. I probably would have more. I'd have more fish and more spots if I did. But because my spots have always been based on plugs, I don't know what I'm not missing.
All right.
There you go. Now everyone can, send in the hate mail. How dare you? If I made plugs, this is you. If I made plugs, the first one I would design is...
The first one I would produce, like what I would make copies of?
No, the first plug you would make. If you were gonna, if you made plugs, what would it be? Oh my god, the suspense is killing me. Dead air.
Yeah, I'm trying to. It would probably be darter.
Oh.
I wanted to, and it's okay. So it's not what I use the most because I'm thinking, well, needlefish, but I got a lot of needlefish already. Like I got a pretty good supply, I guess, unless my supply wasn't there, then I would start building it. So if I'm building plugs, I'm going to want to build something I already don't have like a really good source for. I can go and get a needlefish to fill in, like if I break one off. If I was fishing tonight and I broke off a needlefish and I need to replace it, I could get in touch with Elliot at 24/7 replace it, or I could get in touch with Jay and have him pull some of his inventory out that he hasn't built yet or something, so I could replace that. If I had a wooden darter that I was fishing tonight, I wouldn't have like an easy source to replace. I couldn't just call up so-and-so and be like, hey, I need 7 more wooden darters tomorrow. What do you got? And I know they're a pain in the butt to make. I built plugs for a while, I got to a point where I realized it was way more work than I wanted to be involved in, so I sold all the gear and got out of it. But I did play around with the darter. I've worked with guys that have built darters and tested, and Dave Anderson had a great article in The Fisherman years ago on how to build it. So I know the aspects of what goes into it and how infuriating it could be, but I would want to replace that. I'd want to make a darter that does something different than the plastic ones I can already get readily accessible, the North Bars, the Super Strikes. So it'd be a wooden darter. It'd probably be a bit bigger of a profile than what I have, but yeah, because I can't just go buy it off the shelf easily, that's where I would go with it.
Awesome. Wasn't sure what you're going to say. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay. So I got to figure out so I've got different ways I've been phrasing this one. It's something I've wanted to put out there because I think I kind of know, but I think I was a little surprised with where I think the answer goes. So I'll just say, in the surf, I need a clicker on my drag.
What kind of question is that?
Statement.
For what? Your ego? I don't even know. I need a clicker on my drag. Well, then you're not nearly in touch enough with your gear. Now I'm insulting people. Now I'm straight up insulting people on the podcast, Toby. I actually get annoyed when I service my Van stalls and they come back with the clicker put back in them because I always rip mine out. For me, the clicker is just something to make you feel good or, make it more exciting. But I don't need it to be any more exciting. It's already exciting enough. And of course, if you're someone who's fishing in an area with other people, then there should be no question at all. You should be ripping that clicker out immediately because you do not want people to be all up in your grill and standing on your toes and fishing that same, 20-inch slice of water in front of you where those fish are sitting. And this day and age, people are even more inclined to do that. So you do not want your drag singing. You want to look like you're not fighting a fish, and you certainly want to try everything you can do to make it not look big if it is big. And that's the only time it should be taking a drag is when it's big. And when I say big, I mean it's got to be 25 pounds to be taking drag. In a lot of situations, I'd even say most situations for me, it's got to be that big before it starts to drag. And 14-pound fish is not taking any drag. 0. Mm-hmm. So, I absolutely disagree. You do not need a drag clicker whatsoever. And again, they come back service, then they immediately go out. All right, I'm going to ask you a question that I think might come off as a little bit of trolling, but I insist and promise that it is not. So maybe sort of get yourself prepared for a not trolling question because I genuinely mean it.
All right.
Also, mine all have a theme for some reason this week. They all end. I'm asking you to end the sentence.
Okay.
Finish the sentence. If I could only fish the Cape Cod Canal, blank.
I would quit fishing for striped bass. Now, it's got nothing against the Cape Cod Canal.
I'm floored. I'm floored. Keep going.
If you told me I could only fish one spot like that, if it was you could only fish that anywhere else, the this beach, because I'm kind of putting it as Cape Cod Canal is the equivalent of saying X Breachway in Rhode Island or Z Outflow in Long Island or this little beach on New Jersey shore. I would get bored with the same exact location for the rest of my surf casting time. Now, deep down, I love the concept of fishing the canal. I love jigging the deep water. I've fished the canal, variety of reasons. I don't do it very regularly, and it would really come down to just being locked into having to fish that one spot, even though there's 1,000 million, thousand, trillion, bazillion spots within the canal. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't be able to be limited for the rest of the time. I'd have to find something else to do, because I know in my heart I would get bored with it eventually and just be, what's the reason I'm stuck here? Not even at the condition wise, because I'd have to say, from my knowledge of the canal, and this could be off to a degree, there's it doesn't get blown out, for instance, as much and unfishable to the same degree as a certain beach that anyone can think of. Because of the depth of the canal and the way the current runs, to a degree, I perceive it to be a little more consistent. Now, I know guys out there and girls who are listening and they're saying, well, now if you fish the canal in these conditions, it's impossible. And I get that, but it's still probably more fishable. You're not getting 7-foot seas rolling into your face fishing the canal, at least nowhere that I've fished there. Maybe a little on the ends of it, I guess you could say, but I feel I would be I'd get bored of it eventually, and I couldn't. But again, it's not just hating on the canal, even though it might be a little easy to fish there. I won't. It's not just hate.
A completely unexpected answer. Completely fantastic. What a great answer, though. Wow, great, fantastic.
So this one, I'm gonna set up a little scenario again, which I've done a couple. I know I did last time. I can't remember. I don't think I did the first time, but this is like something that I think about. In the middle of the off season, random nights, if I'm stuck in traffic, in season, whatever. So my question for you, and we're gonna set this up right now as you and I are sitting here. So you and I know the exact date on the calendar. It's basically fishing season's done. It's gonna come out in a couple of weeks. As we speak, at this moment, where, and you don't need to give me anything that's going to burn a spot.
As if I would.
Yeah. But where is the next striped bass that you're going to hook currently swimming right now as we speak?
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. So that's an interesting question, because it really gets to the heart of what's my off-season plans, what's my first early season plans, what happened last year, what happened over the last 10 years, what are the trends, what do I feel like, what's going to be different about this spring. There's a lot of components that go into it. And this is one of the hardest times, so we're recording this in December. This is one of the hardest times for me to make this assessment.
So not where you're going to catch the fish. Where right now that fish that you're going to catch in X number of weeks or months is swimming today in December. Where is he or she swimming?
Excuse me. No, I think the fish that I'm going to catch. So I don't want to go into too many details, because I think the fish is already it's already swimming in the water that I'm going to catch it.
Okay.
So, reading between the lines there, I think people can probably make the assessment that it's going to be a holdover fish. Maybe not holding over in the water that I'm going to catch it, but maybe a fish that doesn't go all the way back to the Chesapeake. It doesn't go offshore. It doesn't go into a river in Connecticut. It doesn't, who knows what it's doing. But the fish that I'm going to catch next is probably in the water in which I will catch it. And I don't even want to say exactly what that is, but spin the wheel on holdover spots and where they're found, right? Holdover fish are found in rivers, estuaries, back bays, harbors, etc. So it's one of those places. And I think it's usually a place I catch one of my last fish of the season. It's usually one of the place I catch my first fish of the season. And it's a place that I visit all year long, except maybe not in July. Though not regularly. If you had like binoculars on me, I wouldn't be there all the time. It's not one of my go-tos, let's put it that way. Okay. That's it. Good question. Tough question.
Yeah, it was more about that than like not trying to dig in, but one of them migratory. Is that fish like a hangfish? Is it move fish? Yeah.
That fish is
these are things I think about like off season. So
yeah, that fish is definitely not a Chesapeake migrator. I'm sure it came from the Chesapeake, but it ain't going back to Chesapeake.
yeah.
Although maybe it's not a Chesapeake fish. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I'm not going to go there. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
All right, Toby. Again, mine are all blank. I don't know why that happened this time, but
Yeah.
I would definitely catch more big fish if I blank.
Had more energy.
Oh. Wow. Explain.
At where I am now, and I hate to say this, like
Just
obviously
because Pete was just on.
well, yeah, right, exactly. I'm still tired from Pete's energy.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a spoiler. Upcoming, we're gonna have
Yes.
Pete from Phase Fishing on. So, anyways, all right, keep going, Toby.
Yeah, if I had more energy, and what I mean by that is like, there's plenty of nights where I go out and I've got a plan of, I'm going to start here, and then when I'm leaving the door and I'm driving to spot one, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go here. These are conditions. This is what I want. And if nothing's happening within the first hour and a half, I'm going to go to spot 2, and I got spot 3 in my mind. And then I go to spot 1 and I give it that hour and a half or maybe 2 hours, and I look to my watch and I start doing that. Well, really, it's probably, I'll just hit those spots tomorrow night. Like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to call it, not an early night, because I still gave it hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe I gave it an extra half hour at this place and put a little more effort in. But I'm just going to, I'm going to just go home and take it easy and put it off to tomorrow night. And I see that coming in for a whole variety of reasons. Like, I'm not old, but I'm getting older. I got life stuff going on. Maybe, my son Aiden had a baseball game tonight or has it tomorrow, so I want to be a little fresher for that. Also, to a degree, I've done a lot, so like the motivation sometimes isn't there. Like to they say, like, you're dating a supermodel, you get bored of the supermodel eventually. Like, it's kind of that. Like, how many more bigger fish can you really go after? So it loses its luster sometimes. And I think if I had more energy, I could like overcome that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still want to and have that desire to constantly get more and bigger fish and like stay on them. But add that in the grind that it's been the last couple of seasons, that wears on you too. So again, like not trying to reference that other episode, but with Pete, like, I was jealous of the energy that guy has. And I really think because hell, more time in the surf is more opportunity to catch the more bigger fish. So if I had more time casting, I'm just gonna catch more bigger fish.
And there, I know I'm not supposed to comment, but that's a big takeaway from what I'm hearing. So yeah. Plus, we're getting everyone super psyched for Pete, who's going to be on coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, yeah, that's
interesting. Didn't expect you to say that at all. Would never have they had no idea that was going to go that direction. No clue. So that was great. That was great.
All right.
Okay. Is this your last one? No. We each got
I think this is my fourth one.
Yeah.
So got this and one more. So all right. There's nothing wrong with chasing reports.
You're not going to expect me to say this, but I genuinely mean that this is the first thing that came to my mind. So anybody who sits through my seminars or hears me speak, which is very rare, but you're going to think that I'm going to say it's bullshit, it's not real fishing, you should fish your patterns and blah, blah, blah. No, the first thing that came to my mind was there is nothing wrong with chasing reports if you do it correctly. That's the first thing that came to my head, that came across my head. And here's what I'm going to say. This could be an entire episode and maybe probably multiple episodes, and maybe we'll talk about it in the future. But the big thing about reports is they're just one piece of information. They're also usually old. Unless the buddy is texting you at 2 o'clock in the morning and you wake up at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever time you wake up, and you got that report that day, even then it's old, but it's not so old. Reports that you're reading are often lagging. They're also almost always embellished. Almost always. because that's the nature of the beast, whether it's from a publication or it's from a person. If you use the information in reports to drive your decisions about your own spots, it can be very powerful. And I have chased reports without ever going near a place where the report was about. Oh, the fish are, they're hammering fish in the breachways of Rhode Island. Okay, they're just hammering fish. Now, 99% of guys are going to go then to the breachway. And yeah, if you want to catch fish, then maybe that's what you should do, right? If you want the highest likelihood. Mm-hmm. But if I know that, then I know, for example, the fish they're here, so I can that is a decision to be made. They're in Rhode Island, let's say. They're coming into the breachway, so what does that mean about the bait situation, the temperature situation, the tide situation, whatever? And then over time, as you build your log, you can say, okay, the fish are here in the breachways again. It's July, whatever, or it's September, whatever, or it's April, whatever. Every year for the last 17 years, that means that in 3 days or 3 weeks or today, I got to be in this spot because when those reports come out, I know the fish are going to be blank. That's one of the most powerful things you can use from a report that nobody talks about, is using the report to set up your own sort of patterns. So that's something I teach in the seminar series about using the reports to drive your decisions without going and fishing. Like, you could use reports from a state away. Okay, the fish are now hitting Montauk. What does that mean? So that's what I would say. Nothing wrong with chasing reports. Probably not what you thought I was going to say. Feels a little bit like a trolling question, Toby.
No. Maybe the way I phrased it was, but not the intent of it.
This is my last one, right?
Yes.
Oh, man. I got to decide here. Okay. I'm going to ask you this one. And this is purely out of my curiosity because I have not asked you this question in our personal lives.
Okay.
I'll fish a floating needlefish when, and don't say hell freezes over or something like that. I'll fish a floating needlefish when blank.
Let me just ask one question about the floating needlefish.
Sure.
Are we talking a floating needlefish that literally floats when you cast it out and does not sink whatsoever? Or is a floating needlefish, for the point of this question, one that just comes to the surface?
I'll let you interpret it how you would like.
Okay. So it's I fish a floating needlefish when I want to fish a needlefish extremely slow. Okay. In general-ish, my needlefish retrieve is probably a little faster than what is generally instructed with needles. I used to for a while I was of that camp that it was a slow retrieve, slow, monotonous, boring, just coming through the water. And I think when we talked about the speed of retrieve in that episode of the podcast, I might have talked of this, but like fishing with Jay and some of the ways he was fishing the needlefish at times, he would often, when we're catching, we communicate a lot, and I would notice that he would describe his retrieve as a bit faster than I was expecting it to be. So if I want to slow it down and not have it just dragging on the bottom, I need that needlefish that's going to come slower through the water. Now, that could be not necessarily in really shallow water, because there's times when I've got a good current coming across and I don't want to, at that stage, dredge the bottom. There are times when I want that needlefish up on top, sort of looking like a lone bunker that's just coming through the water, not trying to be terribly obvious that it's there. So an easy way to do that is to slowly bring that needlefish up on the surface, and it's just nosing along. So I'm not going to get that slow retrieve with a sinking needlefish. I'm going to need one that's going to float, come to the surface upon the retrieve. Of course, when I just fishing shallow water, I'm going to want that concept as well. But I found when I want that, when I'm in a scenario I want it to stay shallow, to stay up on the top, to not really do much, not even swimming very much, not having much movement. That's when I'm reaching for that floating needlefish, as a lot of people refer to them.
Another unexpected answer. Nice.
All right. So this is my last question.
Last question.
Yes. Last one. Obviously, this is, you don't have to say anything about spots. I'm just saying it again.
He's trying to get me to spot burn. You see this?
No.
You get people listening to this. See, he's trying to get me to spot burn. He wants to give me my spots. I feel like this is some jealousy here, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. As if.
So, looking back on your 2024 season.
Oh God, I don't like where this is going already.
10 years from now.
Oh.
You're looking back on your logbook. What would your biggest takeaway be of the season?
Oh, easy. So this is the kind of shit I think about all the time anyways. So this a great question. A great question, though. I don't want to be derogatory towards it. Great question. These are the kinds of things I think about when I'm in the car constantly, or I'm, walking somewhere, or even when I'm running. Now the off-season's over and I've started running a lot again. The biggest takeaway 10 years from now about this season will be, or like the thing that I'll be remembering or instilling 10 years later that I learned of the season. You got to enjoy the good moments, the moments when they're happening. You have to enjoy the good bites while they're happening. I think I did an okay job of that this year in May. I had a couple of nights that were, by anyone's standards, good. And by most standards would be outrageous. 20 fish between 15 and 25 and 3 over 30. Like, that was one of the nights. And then that's not even all the fish. Then there's all kinds of other small ones on top of it. And I did take a moment, a few beats, multiple times to stop and say, this is a really good night. Like, who knows what's going to happen? Live this, feel this, take this into your heart and remember it. And then as the season went, and things were just so abysmal for so large portions of the season, I just kept thinking, like, I wish I had absorbed some of those nights from seasons past even more. And so I think that if I was to look back at my logbook from this year, the thing that I would be thinking about 10 years from now is when things started to get hard, because undeniably, surf fishing is going to continue to be fun and we're going to continue to have fish, but it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Undeniably, it will be remember to enjoy it when it's really good and really absorb that. And honestly, without getting too deep into it, because this has been a long episode already, when I go to Florida on these trips, I get very anxious about my performance. I'm there to create content. I want stories. Tarpon are bastards. And I get very hung up on, like, oh my God, I didn't even hook one tonight. And oh my God, I don't have any photos. And And this time when I was in Florida, I very much decided that I was going to really focus on the positive aspects of me being there and how fortunate I was to be able to do this. And I'm not talking about like the travel and stuff. I'm talking about literally just the fishing aspect of it. The fact that we can do this, that we can fish from the surf and have these fish, etc. So I already know going into 2025, that is going to be my entire focus of 2025. Especially on the big bad sand beaches, which I love so much, but was very, very frustrating last year. Very frustrating, and have been even worse in years past. Even worse. Last year wasn't even that bad compared to some years in the past. I love it out there, and I'm going to try to keep that frame of reference a lot more. So,
all right.
I feel like maybe that was a little bit of a tangent answer, but there it is.
No, that's I was thinking. Well, it came up because I was thinking about it from my point of view for my season the other night. So I was like, that would be a good one. Yeah,
that was good. This is another good one. I feel like we probably didn't piss off too many people, which is probably pretty good. I mean, it's, in past I've said terrible things about Montauk and whatever.
You tried to get me to piss off the canal guys.
I think I did. Yes, I did. I think you did a little bit anyways. So So anyways.
Okay. It's like the go tight days when I used to piss them off just by beating them. So, it's all good.
Yeah. Man, maybe that's something to think about for the future, right? The go tight tournaments. How fun one those were. So, hope everyone enjoyed this episode. Toby, I enjoyed it, and we will see you next time on the Surfcast Podcast. This has been a weekly edition of the Surfcast Podcast. You can find out more about the podcast at surfcastpodcast.com, or definitely check us out on social media, Facebook, Instagram, at the Surfcast Podcast.